Picture this. It's late, the house is quiet, and for a split second, you feel something oddly familiar, like you've lived this moment before. That flash of déjà vu, that whisper of recognition, is a crack in the door to one of humanity's oldest questions. Why are we here? You can call it curiosity, anxiety, or wonder, but every single one of us, at some point, has felt it. Americans love straight talk, so let's skip the mysticism and get practical. We're not here to chase miracles or memorize doctrines. We're here to explore one of the most grounded ideas ever proposed by the Buddha, that life is a single shot. It's a series of lessons. Every habit, every reaction, every word you say is part of a pattern that keeps replaying until you finally learn the deeper rhythm beneath it. If you've ever looked at your life and thought, why does this keep happening to me? Congratulations! You're already halfway to understanding what Buddhists call samsara. It's not about punishment or reward. It's about repetition. Imagine life as a treadmill powered by your own habits. Your fears, your temper, your generosity, your patience. The belt keeps moving because of you. That's the real meaning of karma. Not some cosmic scorecard, but the momentum you build every day. The good news? You can step off that treadmill anytime you want. Not by quitting life, but by changing how you live it. By swapping blind reaction for awareness. And that awareness is what leads to freedom, or what Buddhists call nirvana. It's not a fantasy land. It's peace earned through clarity. Think about how Americans approach fitness or finance. We know that small daily actions compound. Your 401k, your morning jog, your food choices, they add up. The mind works the same way. Every thought is an investment. Every action pays dividends later. So the Buddhist path isn't about belief. It's about training. The Eightfold Path is essentially the world's first self-improvement plan. Right view, see clearly. Right intention, aim wisely. Right speech, talk cleanly. Right action, live decently. Right livelihood, work ethically. Right effort, stay consistent. Right mindfulness, stay present. And right concentration, focus deep. It's not ancient poetry. It's cognitive behavioral science in monk robes. And here's the American twist. You don't have to buy incense or move to the bet to try it. You can start with one micro habit tonight. Before bed, take 3 slow breaths and notice one thing you're grateful for. Tomorrow morning, before you grab your phone, say one kind thing to someone you love or to yourself. That's karma reprogramming in real time. In a week, you'll feel it. In a month, you'll see it. So why are we here? Maybe not to conquer or consume, but to refine, to grow sharper, softer, wiser, until we finally stop creating the same messes and start building the life we keep wishing for. That's the Buddha's answer in plain American English. You're here to wake up inside your own story. And hey, if that hits home, do me a favor. Tap that like button so YouTube knows this message matters. Share it with someone who's been asking big questions lately. And hit subscribe, because in the next episode, we'll dig into how karma actually works in real life, why good people suffer, and how to stop repeating the same painful loops. Drop a comment below and tell me one habit you want your next version to inherit. Maybe that version is tomorrow you, or maybe it's someone you'll meet again in another chapter of the same beautiful loop. Either way, start now. You probably heard people say, everything happened for a reason. It sounds comforting, right? But sometimes that phrase feels like a cop-out, especially when life punches you in the gut. A job loss, a breakup, a diagnosis. It's easy to ask, seriously, what reason could justify this? Buddhism doesn't tell you to just trust the plan. It tells you you are part of the plan. Life isn't doing things to you. It's responding through you. Your choices, your mindset, your reactions. They are all signals bouncing back in ways you can actually see if you slow down long enough. Let's break this down in a way that makes sense in our modern world. Imagine you're driving on a long highway. Every lane change, every missed exit, every rest stop creates a slightly different route. Karma isn't fate. It's your driving history. The good news is you're still behind the wheel. You can't erase the miles you've driven, but you can steer differently from here on out. That's why the Buddha said effort matters more than perfection. If you keep choosing awareness over autopilot, eventually the road changes. I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine, let's call him Dan, was a classic overachiever. He built a business from nothing, bought the lake house, and had everything that screamed success. But he couldn't sleep. Every night, the same loop of worry replayed in his head. What if it all collapses? What if I lose everything? He'd scroll through his phone at 2 a.m., trying to distract himself. One day, he hit burnout hard, panic attacks, chest tightness, even hospital visits. The doctors told him, "You're fine physically. It's stress." But he couldn't switch it off. When he started practicing meditation, not fancy retreats, just 10 minutes of breathing, he realized something wild. His thoughts weren't random. They had patterns. The fear of not being enough, the craving for control, the refusal to rest. Each thought was an echo of old conditioning. Parents who demanded perfection, a culture that worships productivity. Once he saw those thoughts clearly, they started to lose power. After a few months, his panic faded. He slept better. He laughed again. And when I asked him what changed, he said, "Nothing out there, everything in here." That's karma, emotion. He didn't escape his life. He reprogrammed it. See, in Buddhism, karma isn't punishment, it's momentum. Every thought, word, and deed leaves a small imprint, like footprints in wet sand. You might forget them, but they don't forget you. They harden into habits, and habits become character. Your character decides how you respond to the next wave that hits. That's why the past doesn't doom you. It teaches you what to practice next. When the Buddha said, "With our thoughts we make the world," he wasn't being poetic. He was describing neurology before neuroscience existed. Modern psychology now agrees. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Repetition is destiny. So here's where it gets practical. You can't stop life from happening, but you can choose what you multiply. Every time you meet frustration with patience, you weaken the chain of anger that keeps you spinning in samsara. Every time you choose honesty over manipulation, you clean the signal of your consciousness. That's how the wheel slows down, not through divine mercy, but through consistent training. Imagine if every American who complains about bad luck spent 1 week just observing their reactions. No judgment, no guilt, just observation. You'd see how often we argue with reality instead of understanding it. That awareness is the first freedom. Now, let's connect this idea of continuation. Buddhism teaches that nothing truly vanishes. It transforms. Think of how water becomes steam, then rain, then rivers again. Your energy does the same. Thoughts don't evaporate when you die. They flow into new forms, new lives, new experiences. But even if you don't buy the idea of literal rebirth, you can still see how mental rebirth happens daily. Have you ever woken up and felt like a completely different person from who you were 5 years ago? Same name, same address, but new beliefs, new triggers, new dreams. That's reincarnation in miniature. You've died and been reborn dozens of times in this lifetime already. And yet, So many of us live like sleepwalkers, reacting, scrolling, consuming, numbing ourselves. We forget that awareness is a muscle. The more we use it, the more alive we become. The less we use it, the more we sink back into the loop. The Buddha's point wasn't to shame us. It was to wake us up. He didn't want believers. He wanted experimenters. He said, come and see. Don't accept, don't reject, test it. That's a deeply American approach, isn't it? The spirit of curiosity, self-reliance, and experiment. Let me give you another modern story. Karen, a 68-year-old nurse, retired after 40 years in the ER. She'd seen more death than anyone should. She told me, I can't stop replaying faces. The guilt, the helplessness, it sticks. Instead of therapy, she tried something small. Every night she lit a candle and said one sentence aloud, May they be free. May I be free. She didn't expect magic. But after a few weeks, the weight began to shift. Her dreams softened. Her body relaxed. That was karma transforming. Old emotional energy releasing through compassion. Her suffering didn't disappear. It evolved. That's the power of right intention and right speech combined. A small, kind act repeated until it rewires your reality. You don't have to be a monk to get this. Whether you're a teacher, a truck driver, or a single parent, the principle holds. What you cultivate inwardly writes the script of your outer life. You've already proven it in small ways. The times you forgave instead of fought, you felt lighter. The times you gave instead of grabbed, you slept better. The times you slowed down instead of sped up, you made better decisions. That's Buddhism without the label. It's emotional cause and effect, visible and immediate. So, let's make it practical. Here's a challenge for this week. Pick one loop that's been running your life. Maybe it's overthinking, maybe anger, maybe guilt. For 7 days, just notice it. When it shows up, don't argue. Greet it like an old acquaintance. Ah, here you are again. That's mindfulness. Then add a counteraction, one small opposite habit. If anger rises, take one deep breath before you speak. If envy hits, write one sentence of gratitude. If loneliness bites, send one message to check on someone else. You're not fixing the loop overnight. You're introducing friction, and friction changes everything. Now, I want you to imagine the ripple effect if millions of people practice this. Less outrage, more patience, fewer wars in comment sections, fewer sleepless nights fueled by fear. That's the social version of nirvana, not some glowing paradise, but a society where people act from clarity instead of compulsion. It starts tiny, with you, right now, choosing to stop recycling your pain. And if you made it this far, it's probably because something inside you already knows this is true. You felt how your inner state colors your entire day. You've seen how resentment poisons conversations, and how a single generous gesture can shift the energy in a room. You've lived samsara and nirvana already, just in miniature doses. The path isn't elsewhere. It's here in this next breath. If this message resonates with you, don't just nod, participate. Hit that like button to tell the algorithm we need more content that feeds the mind, not just the ego. Share this with a friend who's been stuck in their own loop, and subscribe, because in the next part, we'll explore something that might change how you look at life and death altogether. The science and the stories behind what happens after consciousness leaves the body. Until then, take one mindful breath, unclench your jaw, and remember, you're not a victim of your past. You're the author of your next chapter. Keep writing wisely. Let's get real for a second. Most of us grew up believing that science and spirituality belong on opposite sides of a courtroom. One deals in evidence, the other in faith. But here's the twist. Buddhism doesn't ask for blind faith. It asks for observation. It says, see for yourself. And that makes it one of the most science-friendly spiritual paths on the planet. You don't have to bow, chant, or shave your head to test its ideas. You just have to watch your own mind long enough to notice what's actually happening, not what you think is happening. That's where the real experiment begins. See, when the Buddha spoke about rebirth, he wasn't selling superstition. He was describing continuity, the same principle you see in every law of physics. Energy doesn't vanish. It changes form. Thought, emotion, and intention are all forms of energy. And while we can't yet put compassion under a microscope, we can absolutely measure the ripple effects of behavior and consciousness. Every psychologist, neuroscientist, and even economist will tell you the same thing. Patterns repeat until you interrupt them. Buddhism just calls that pattern karma. Let's talk evidence for a minute. Over the last few decades, researchers have investigated stories that sound straight out of a movie. Children recalling details of lives they never lived, speaking languages they've never learned, recognizing faces from faraway towns. You've got serious academics like Dr. Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia, who spent decades studying over 2,500 such cases. He wasn't out to prove reincarnation. He just followed the data. Some of these cases defied logical explanation. Kids describing past homes, families, even how they died, with verified details that no 5-year-old could invent. Is it definitive proof? Maybe not, but it raises a bigger question. If consciousness truly ends at death, why do these patterns of memory and identity sometimes reappear? Even modern physics leaves the door open. Think of Julian Huxley, Einstein's friend Gustav Stromberg, or even Henry Ford. People who live for logic, engineering, and evidence, yet still found the idea of consciousness continuing completely reasonable. Ford once said that discovering reincarnation made him stop fearing death and start investing in the long game of self-improvement. Because if life doesn't end when the body does, then every day becomes a training session for the next round. You stop chasing temporary wins and start building lasting wisdom. But let's bring it back to earth. What does this mean for you sitting there, probably on your couch, phone in hand, maybe trying to figure out why life feels repetitive? Whether or not you believe in literal rebirth, the metaphor still works. You are reborn every time you wake up and decide not to repeat yesterday's mistake. You are reborn when you stop blaming your parents or your past and start rewriting your story. You are reborn when you pause before reacting and choose understanding instead of rage. That's reincarnation in action, one conscious moment at a time. The problem isn't whether you'll have another life. The problem is what kind of life you're living now. Because look around. We live in a country obsessed with newness. New phones, new diets, new relationships. But the truth is, no new thing fixes old patterns. You can move to a new city and still meet the same kind of people because you're bringing the same unresolved karma with you. You can date someone with a different name, but the same emotional blueprint. You can change jobs but carry the same habits that burned you out before until the inner software updates. The outer scenery doesn't matter. That's why Buddhism calls this loop samsara, the cycle of craving, attachment, and ignorance that keeps us replaying the same movie with different actors. You're not cursed, you're conditioned. The good news? Conditioning can be rewritten, and meditation, mindfulness, and right effort are the tools to do it. Every time you sit still and observe a thought instead of reacting, you're literally breaking a neural pattern. Every time you offer compassion where you'd normally offer judgment, You're upgrading your system. It's like rewriting bad code in your own brain. Now, here's the kicker. The Buddha didn't say suffering ends when the world changes. He said it ends when your relationship to the world changes. That's an uncomfortable truth in a culture that thrives on control. We want certainty, guarantees of love, success, safety. But reality doesn't play by our emotional contracts. Buddhism invites us to trade control for clarity, to stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That single shift, curiosity over complaint, is a hinge on which transformation swings. Let's pause for a story that captures this. A veteran named Mike, I once met at a mindfulness retreat, told me he used to wake up every night to the echo of war sounds. His therapist had tried everything. He said, I thought meditation was nonsense, but then I realized I'd already been meditating on trauma every night. So he flipped the script. He began meditating on peace instead. At first, it felt fake. Then it felt fragile. Then, after months, it felt real. He said, the war didn't leave me when I came home. But when I started practicing compassion, it stopped winning. That's karmic transformation in real time. Suffering recycled into wisdom. We all have our versions of that war. Maybe yours is resentment. Maybe it's insecurity. Maybe it's the fear of aging or failing. Buddhism doesn't promise to erase pain. It teaches you to outgrow it. Like an athlete who stops fighting the weight and learns to lift it with form, you stop struggling against life and start training with it. Every heartbreak becomes resistance training for the soul. And look, this doesn't have to be solemn. The Buddha himself had a sense of humor about human stubbornness. He once said try to explain truth to an unready mind is like talking to a cow about calculus. So take your growth seriously, but not yourself. Smile at your patterns. Laugh at your ego when it takes itself too seriously. That lightness is part of awakening too. Now, I want you to think about how this message lands in modern America, a country built on reinvention. We love comeback stories. The addict who gets sober, the bankrupt entrepreneur who rebuilds, the single mom who goes back to school at 50. That's Samsara done right. Turning repetition into redemption. The Buddha's teachings fit perfectly here because they say you can always start over. Your past isn't a prison. It's a lesson plan. So here's my challenge. Don't just believe in rebirth. Practice it daily. Die to one unhelpful habit each morning. Be reborn into one better action each night. Start small. Maybe it's not scrolling in bed. Maybe it's telling someone, thank you. Maybe it's forgiving that person who doesn't even know you're still mad. That's the spiritual version of compound interest. It looks small now, but it changes your future balance. And if this conversation stirs something in you, keep that flame alive. Don't let it be another feel-good video you forget by tomorrow. Tap that like button if this message hit home. Share it with someone who's been questioning their purpose. And subscribe because in the next part, we're going deeper into how you can actually change your karma, rewire your mental habits, and reshape the life you wake up to every morning. Drop a comment below and tell me one loop you're ready to break. Maybe it's self-doubt, maybe procrastination, maybe the fear of being seen. Whatever it is, write it down. That's your first conscious act of liberation. Remember, you're not stuck, you're spinning, and with awareness you can spin your way out. Because life isn't a sentence to serve. It's a story to rewrite. And maybe, just maybe, this is the chapter where you finally wake up. Let's finish this with honesty, heart, and hope, because after all the philosophy, all the talk about karma, rebirth, and consciousness, it really comes down to one question. What do you want your time here mean? Every day you wake up, You get a brand new canvas. The past isn't gone. It's just dry paint underneath the new layer. And what you paint today will color the picture tomorrow. And maybe, if you believe the Buddha, of the lives beyond it. The thing is, we all leave fingerprints on the world, on people we love, on strangers we barely notice, and on the quiet corners of our own hearts. You don't need a religion to see that. You just have to pay attention. When the Buddha spoke of nirvana, he wasn't describing some mystical escape hatch. He was describing what it feels like when the mind stops fighting itself, when you stop trying to control every storm and learn instead to dance in the rain, when you stop demanding life to be fair and start making it meaningful. That's the freedom we're all chasing, peace that doesn't depend on perfect circumstances. Let me tell you about Margaret. She's 73, a retired teacher from Ohio. When her husband died, she said it felt like the world collapsed overnight. The house was too quiet, the bed too big. She started watching Buddhist talks online, not because she was religious, but because she wanted to understand how to breathe again. She learned to sit with her grief instead of fighting it. She'd light a candle, whisper his name, and say, "May you be free. May I be free." She told me, at first it was just words, then it became truth. Over time, she didn't stop missing him, but she stopped drowning in the missing. That's nirvana, American edition, peace inside the chaos. You don't have to lose someone to learn that lesson. Every one of us is losing time, certainty, youth, illusions. But what the Buddha reminds us is that loss can be your teacher if you stop labeling it your enemy. The point of living isn't to escape suffering. It's to understand it. Once you understand it, it transforms. Pain turns into empathy. Fear turns into humility. Mistakes turn into wisdom. That's how you evolve in real time. Now, if you follow me through all these parts, thank you. You've already practiced mindfulness just by paying attention for this long. So let me bring it home. Buddhism, stripped of all labels, is a manual for being human. It says, everything changes, so stop clinging. Everything connects, so stop pretending you're alone. Every moment counts, so stop wasting them. That's it. The rest is practice. And practice doesn't mean perfection. It means repetition with awareness. You mess up, you start again. You fall asleep to your life. You wake back up. It's the same for all of us. Here's how you can start today. 3 small things that carry massive ripple effects. Breathe before reacting. Just 3 deep breaths can rewrite an argument, a decision, or an entire mood. Speak 1 sentence of kindness daily. Compliment the cashier. Thank the co-worker nobody notices. Encourage the person in the mirror. Let go of 1 grudge. Not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. These aren't cliches. They're rewiring tools. Each time you choose clarity over chaos, the loop slows down. The wheel of samsara loses a little traction. And maybe that's how liberation actually begins. Not in monasteries, but in living rooms, grocery stores, traffic jams, and late-night thoughts. Look, we don't need to believe in heaven or hell to want to live better. We just need to realize that every choice, every thought, is building a heaven or hell inside us right now. The next time you feel stuck, remember this. You're not the storm. You're the sky. The clouds pass. You remain. And when you remember that, even for a moment, you've already touched nirvana. So, if this series has opened something inside you, don't let it fade. Hit that like button so this message reaches someone who needs it tonight. Share it with a friend who's searching for peace but doesn't know where to start. And most importantly, subscribe, because our next video will take these teachings off the page and into practice. We'll explore real methods, mindfulness for anxiety, compassion for a burnout, purpose after loss. And before you go, drop a comment below. Tell me one thing you're ready to release and one thing you want to grow. Maybe it's anger and patience. Maybe it's fear and courage. Maybe it's judgment and love. Whatever it is, write it down. That's your promise to yourself. Because in the end, the Buddha's answer to why are we here is simple: to wake up, to love better, and to leave the world softer than we found it. And that, my friends, is a purpose worth living and living again for. Let's take this deeper, beyond philosophy, beyond belief, into something you can feel in your bones. You've heard that we're all energy, right? It's easy to shrug that off as cliche, but think about it. Every emotion, every memory, every word you speak carries a vibration. You walk into a room where people are just arguing, and you can feel it. The tension hums in the air. You walk into a place where people were laughing, and the air feels lighter. That's not superstition. That's energy in motion. The Buddha called it the law of cause and effect, karma, and it's not mystical punishment. It's the natural rhythm of how life moves through us. So when we talk about rebirth, it's not necessarily about coming back as someone else centuries from now. It's about the fact that you're reborn every single time you choose differently. Every time you respond with patience instead of anger, empathy instead of judgment, understanding instead of defensiveness, you reincarnate yourself in real time. You're not the same person you were 5 minutes ago, let alone 5 years ago. You've died and been reborn thousands of times already, in how you love, forgive, and grow. Let me tell you a story about Marcus, a retired firefighter from New York. He told me that after decades of saving lives, he couldn't save his own marriage. The guilt ate him alive. Every night he'd replay the same regrets. The words he said, the ones he didn't, the moments he wished he could do over. He said it felt like living in a loop that kept starting where it ended. Then one morning, sitting at a coffee shop, he overheard a couple talking about mindfulness. Out of curiosity, he looked it up. A week later, he was sitting alone in his living room, eyes closed, just breathing. At first, he said, all I heard was noise. My mind wouldn't shut up. But somewhere between the breaths, I realized this isn't punishment. This is practice. 6 months later, he said something that stuck with me. I didn't find peace. I remembered it. That's what Buddhism points to. Not a foreign idea, but a familiar truth we've forgotten under all the noise. You don't get peace, you uncover it. It's been there the whole time, waiting beneath the chatter, beneath the anger, beneath the pretending. The Eightfold Path isn't religion. It's a process of remembering who you really are before the world told you what to fear. Now, let's talk about the mind, not as a mystical cloud, but as an engine. Neuroscience now shows that meditation rewires the brain. Compassion practices strengthen neural circuits for empathy and reduce stress response. Gratitude increases dopamine and serotonin, the same chemicals antidepressants target. When the Buddha talked about training the mind, he wasn't preaching. He was describing neuroplasticity 2,500 years before science had the word for it. Meditation isn't about escaping reality. It's about reprogramming your system so that you stop reacting to life like a wounded animal and start responding like a conscious human being. We're living in a time where anxiety is the new normal. Americans are medicated, caffeinated, overstimulated, but rarely still. And that stillness is exactly what we're starving for. Because when you stop running from silence, you meet yourself. And that's the meeting that changes everything. The Buddha called it seeing clearly. It's that moment you realize your anger isn't truth. It's just energy asking to be seen and released. Your fear isn't prophecy. It's memory in disguise. Your stress isn't the world falling apart. It's your body begging you to come home. But here's the real revolution. Once you start living with that awareness, compassion becomes your default setting. You stop taking things so personally because you see everyone is fighting their own invisible war. You stop needing to win every argument because peace feels better than being right. You stop chasing perfection because you understand deeply that imperfection is what makes you human. And maybe for the first time, you start feeling alive without needing a reason. Now imagine what would happen if more of us lived like that. Less shouting, more listening. Less judgment, more understanding. Imagine politics, workplaces, families, even social media, not driven by ego, but by empathy. That's not utopia. That's evolution. That's the next step of humanity. Not smarter tech or longer lifespans, but deeper consciousness. And that's where you come in, because it's easy to watch videos like this, nod along, and then go right back to autopilot. But if you've listened this far, it's because something in you is ready to stop looping, ready to wake up. So here's what I want you to do. Tonight, before you sleep, take 60 seconds to breathe. Ask yourself one simple question. What part of me am I ready to let die? And what part of me is ready to be born? Maybe it's pride giving way to humility. Maybe it's fear giving way to trust. Maybe it's shame giving way to forgiveness. Whatever it is, name it, because naming is claiming. That's the start of conscious rebirth. And tomorrow morning, take one action. Something kind, something honest, something that feels like the future version of you, and just do it. Don't overthink it. Just live it. Because enlightenment isn't a flash of light in the sky. It's every small moment you choose awareness over autopilot. So if this message stirs something inside you, don't let it end here. Tap that like button so this truth can reach others who need it. Share it with someone who's stuck in their own loop. The friend who can't forgive, the sibling who's lost hope, the colleague who's burning out. And subscribe, because in the next part, we're going to make this even more practical. Real-world tools to rebuild peace, focus, and joy in the middle of chaos. And before you scroll away, do one more thing for yourself. Drop a comment below and finish the sentence. My next life begins when I fill in honestly. Maybe it's when you let go, when you forgive, when you breathe, when you finally start living the way you've always wanted to. Because the truth is, you don't need to wait for death to be reborn. You can start today. You can start right now. And here we are, the end of this journey, but maybe the beginning of something even greater. You've listened, reflected, and breathed through ideas that have been carried for over 2,000 years. Ideas that don't just belong to monks or mystics. They belong to you, to anyone who's ever asked, why am I here? And truly wanted to know. The Buddha's answer wasn't meant to be mysterious. It was meant to be practical. We're here to wake up, to understand that our lives are not random, not accidents of biology or luck, but flowing stories built moment by moment, thought by thought. Every word we speak echoes in the lives of others. Every intention we carry shapes our reality. Every act of kindness, yes, even the smallest one, ripples far beyond what we can see. That's what the Buddha meant when he said that the mind precedes all things. It's not just a quote for coffee mugs. It's the most powerful formula for living consciously that humanity has ever discovered. Now, before you click away, I want you to pause. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel it fill your chest. Feel it leave. That simple act, awareness of your breath, is enlightenment in miniature. That's the start of waking up to your own life. Because here's the truth. You don't need to travel to temples in Nepal or meditate for 40 years to touch peace. You can start here, Today, wherever you are, enlightenment is not a destination. It's a daily decision to be present, to be kind, to be curious, and to keep coming back to the moment instead of getting lost in the noise. Think about your life right now, the people you love, the worries that steal your sleep, the small joys that keep you going. What if all of it, the good, the bad, the confusing, is your classroom? What if every experience, even the ones you regret, is an invitation to wake up a little more? That's what the Buddha realized under that fig tree so long ago. Life doesn't need to be escaped. It needs to be understood. When you understand, suffering turns into wisdom, pain turns into compassion, and fear turns into freedom. So what do you do next? You start small. You begin with awareness. You practice being awake to your own choices. You slow down just enough to see what's driving your reactions. You learn to listen, not only to others, but to yourself. You treat every conversation as a chance to be kind. You forgive faster. You love deeper. You expect less and appreciate more. That's not religion. That's transformation. And please, remember this. Your journey doesn't need to look like anyone else's. Maybe your version of meditation is walking by the ocean. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's sitting in your car for 5 minutes after work, letting yourself just breathe. What matters is that you stop running from yourself. Because the moment you stop running, peace catches up to you. I've met people who've chased meaning their whole lives, through careers, relationships, money, or travel. And the ones who finally found it didn't find it out there. They found it when they learned how to simply be here. One man told me, "I used to think happiness was something I had to earn. Now I see it's what's left when I stop fighting reality." That's the heart of it. That's what the Buddha discovered, and what every one of us can rediscover, if we dare to slow down and look inward. You are not broken. You are becoming. You're not lost. You're just in the middle of unfolding. And if you've made it this far through the series, that means something in you is ready to change, ready to live awake. So take this as your sign. Don't let the insight fade into background noise. Do something with it today. Forgive someone. Start a gratitude note. Take a mindful walk. Meditate for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be sincere. Now, before we close, I want to ask you something. Look at your life and ask, what do I want my next chapter to feel like? Not what you want to own or achieve or prove, but what you want to feel. Peaceful? Grounded? Free? Loved? Whatever your answer is, know that it's not waiting in the future. It's built now through the small decisions you make every day. If this message touched you, if even one line here reminded you that you still have the power to shape your story, then don't let it end here. Hit that like button so this wisdom can travel to someone who needs it tonight. Share it with a friend who's struggling, a family member who's questioning, or anyone who's forgotten that it's never too late to start over. And subscribe, because our community is growing into something more than a channel. It's a space for people like you and me who believe that awareness, compassion, and purpose still matter in a world that often forgets. And now, in the comments, I want to hear from you. Finish the sentence. Today I wake up by, maybe it's by forgiving, by breathing, by listening, by letting go. Write it down. That's your declaration. That's your new karma in motion. Because here's the truth, the most beautiful truth of all. You don't need to wait for another lifetime to begin again. You can begin right here, right now, in this very breath. Life will never stop moving, but you can learn to move with it gracefully, courageously, consciously. That's the Buddha's answer. That's the invitation. So take one more breath with me. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel your heart still beating, still trying, still alive. That's life calling you, not to believe, but to wake up, to live wide awake, to make this one precious, incredible life your masterpiece. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to listen, to question, to grow. And until we meet again, be gentle, be curious, and keep walking the path with eyes open and heart steady, because this isn't the end of your journey. It's the start of your awakening.